Hello there. Welcome back to the Music Career Show. So, my guest today didn't actually start playing music until approximately 5, 6 years ago, which is absolutely baffling when you look at how much of an online following she has grown in that time in the tin whistle, low whistle, basically kind of traditional woodwind communities. Her mission in music is to make music as accessible as possible to as many people as she can while helping them navigate the many pitfalls and gatekeepers of the music business. So this is Stephanie Burton. Good morning. No, where are we? Good afternoon. Hi.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Well, good morning. Depending on where you are in the world, I suppose. It could be good morning, could be
Yes,
good night,
true.
could be good day, could be goodbye. Do you know what I mean? Doesn't matter. So, Steph, it's lovely to have you on. Why don't you introduce yourself for people that may or may not have heard of you just yet?
Okay, well, I'm Steph. Basically, all I do is make tin whistle tutorials online, mostly on YouTube, and I just aim to do it without the need for any background experience in music.
I love that. I love that so much. I'm self-taught in all the instruments that I play, and I think that is so important to get out there that it music is it's is accessible to anyone at any level, and there is an instrument for everyone.
There is
So,
indeed.
um, in that same vein, then, where did it all start for you? Because usually I speak to people and they're like, "Oh, well, when I was 3, my dad used to love, I don't know, Hank Marvin, and I always wanted to have that red Stratocaster like Hank Marvin." But your story isn't quite like that, is it?
Not really. I started, yeah, as you say, about 6 years ago now. I basically decided that I was going to play harp because I'd wanted to play an instrument and I'd seen the harp twins on YouTube and I thought this is amazing. So I'll buy a harp. And then just sort of scrolling through which one I was going to buy. And my husband says to me, well, what instrument could I play? And I said, okay, well, he's got no music experience, doesn't even like
Uh,
music, can't even sing a song that he
Weird.
knows in his head, can't even recall any melody. And I thought, well, I'll look for the easiest thing I can find. So you look online and you get tin whistle. So I
Fair enough.
ordered 2 because I thought, well, I may as well play the same thing with him. And then I stuck with it and he didn't. But
Good
I
for lads.
mean, the way I ended up online doing it was I just thought I'd keep track of my progress as I was going along every month or so, and I'd upload something to YouTube to see if in 6 months' time I'd actually, improved at all.
Yeah.
And then I think from the first video or one of the first few videos that I posted online, which was like the Godfather theme tune, people
Yeah.
kept sort of commenting underneath and saying, well, can you do a tutorial for it? I didn't even know tabs existed. I didn't even know. I mean, I still
Amazing.
don't really know how to read music. And it kind of just went from there.
So how did you learn the Godfather team? And why the
Um,
Godfather team matches? For tin whistle, that's so to give a
yes.
little bit of background on what a tin whistle is for anyone that doesn't know what a tin whistle is. Anyone from Ireland knows what a tin whistle is, of course,
Yeah.
100%. Every single person, every single Irish person growing up in the past hundred since civilization began
Yeah.
has been made to play the tin whistle, and 99% of us, like speaking Irish, still can't do it. I'm included. I can't play a tin whistle. I really wish I could. But a tin whistle is it's also known as a penny whistle. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Penny
Yeah,
whistle,
that's
and
correct.
it's just basically a really, really cheap instrument with a plastic top that you kind of looks like the top of a biro, and you just sort of
Yep.
blow into it, and it sounds lovely if you do it right.
That is it.
But where I was going with that is that it's normally kind of Irish trad, sort of druidy sounding songs. So the Godfather is about as far removed from that as I can think. So where did that come from?
Well, I was part of a sort of musical theatre group at the time. So we'd been doing a lot of swing music and we were in the middle of a show doing some swing music. So we did all sorts of music of that genre. And we'd actually sung well, yeah, we were singing the Godfather theme as part of the one show we were doing.
Oh,
So it was just in my head. So I just thought, well, I'll see if I can play it. And I'll be honest with you, at the time when I got that tin whistle, I didn't even know anything about Irish music. I'd never
right.
heard Irish music. I, everybody's sort of seen Riverdance, but honestly, that was about it. So I've been opened up to this entire new world of music that I didn't even know existed. So when I
Yeah.
got the tin whistle, my intention wasn't to learn Irish music or play Irish music. I didn't even know that was there. It was
Yeah.
just an instrument to me to play anything on, like you play oboe or clarinet or or whatever.
Amazing. So how did
Yeah.
for me when I was learning, I'm self-taught as well, and I had things like YouTube and stuff like that. Just about you had YouTube. Like, yeah, we were on dial up, so YouTube was. Do you know what I mean? You really had to want to learn the song, but anyway, but I was able to teach myself that way. Now, 5, 6 years ago, I suppose I was maybe a little bit longer than that. I tried to learn how to play tin whistle because that was what I did in my spare time. I took up new instruments, and I could not, for the life of me, find proper, well taught. There wasn't the same amount
No.
of stuff as there is for like the likes of guitar or for drums or piano or a more sort
Yeah.
of mainstream instrument, we call it. So how did you manage to figure out this all by yourself?
I played a few other wind instruments throughout school, so I guess that helps. But I've never played any instrument to a level where I can pick it up and play it. So I had piano lessons when I was a kid, but honestly, I can't do anything on it now.
Yeah.
I played oboe again for a few months, but it sounded like I was strangling a duck, so I stopped. So I don't know. It was obviously, it was just that it was 6 holes, and
Yeah.
to play the scale was quite straightforward because you went from the bottom to the top, opening one hole at a time. So it sort of made sense in my head. Um, so yeah, I found like the Online Academy of Irish Music do a lot of lessons and things. There were one or two tutorials that just sort of showed you the basics of where the notes were on the whistle. And then once I knew where those notes were, I just kind of worked it out from
Wow.
there.
Fair play. As an adult, that's a hard thing to do. That's a really hard thing to do as an adult. I've found anyway.
Yeah.
And I tried to do it that way, and without blowing my own trumpet, and this is not meant in a Barry's class kind of Barry thinks he's class kind of way. I can play a load of different instruments and I can usually figure them out, but tin whistle just completely
Yes.
baffled me. Even with knowing that's where that note is, that's where that one is, I couldn't marry it up. So I'm in awe of you. I think you're great.
Thank you.
So you got your first tin whistle, you got the Godfather theme, you got that up on YouTube. We're going to come back to YouTube in a bit because I really want to get into that. But when did you realize that the tin whistle wasn't just one instrument, that there was a whole other kind of area that you could go into with like the low whistles and all that kind of stuff?
Um, I'd probably say, well, I started with the classic generation whistle that everybody has.
Yep, I've got the
And I got the wrong key to start with. I got a C. You're supposed to have a D.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
that's,
Actually, yeah.
yeah, the way most people start. And then I think, obviously, I didn't know that low whistle existed. I didn't know that there were other keys of whistle when I first bought one. So the second you start looking into it, you know what it's like. If you look into anything, you
Yeah.
go down that rabbit hole of, wow, it's attached to this. Wow, there's a big version. And it just kind
Ah,
of went from there. And then it was years later that I knew that I found out, for example, that if you play the Irish flute, it's the same thing, but with a flute mouthpiece and you play it to the
just that
side.
way. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, alongside that, I play things like Native American flute now, which is kind of similar. It's a bit of a different scale, but it's pretty much exactly the same sort of technique, I suppose. So
Yeah.
it took a few years, I think, because I was never intending to make it a career. I was never intended to have it as a huge part of my life, I suppose. So it's been a constant learning process, really.
Fantastic. And what a happy accident it turned out to be. What a very happy accident it turned out to
Yeah.
be. So is tin whistling now your full time and YouTubing and stuff?
Yes. I
Fantastic.
I do. I did actually used to film commercials, and I used to film voiceovers record voiceovers and things for adverts for online businesses before that. So I still do a little bit of that now, mostly sort of phone messages.
Right.
But yeah, the majority of it now is YouTube. Spend all my day making a lot of noise.
Love it. I'm so in awe of you. I really wanted to do that before. Like I wanted to do that for years, and I just never had the patience to do it. Yeah, that's amazing. I'm so happy that that's happened, and it's such a like a feel good story. And I hope this gives an awful lot of other people a lot of kind of hope and a kick up the arse that you can actually do this. I know it wasn't
Yeah.
that late in life for you, but it still was. I
Well,
would
yeah.
guess me and you are roughly the same age, so kind of mid-20s ish when you picked this up. So yeah, that's absolutely amazing. So then, when did the Irish music come into it?
I'd say probably about a year and a half in. When I started making tutorials regularly on YouTube, people would request certain songs. So somebody would say, "Oh, have you done this Irish tune?" And then I also got a lot of hate because
Did you?
obviously, yeah, there's like a huge sort of protective about the traditions and the proper way to do it, obviously around Irish trad music. So if you don't really go into it with that much knowledge behind it, which obviously I didn't have. I was like a year and a half into playing the instrument and I was already making tutorials. So it kind of annoyed a lot of people that had been traditionally taught or that had spent a long time learning to play trad music properly. So when
Yeah.
I went in there and I tried that, I did get a lot of negative feedback when I started. So, but I mean, the reason I tried it was because people would request that I play a certain jig or a certain Irish slow air or anything that they wanted to play. And if I listen to it and I like it, it goes right to the top of my list. So
Brilliant. And you're
yeah.
just you're just able to suss that all out by ear.
Yes. I just listen to it and then you think, well, especially if you know the key of whistle that you play on regular, you think, I know that note, it's like two fingers down. So I just
Oh,
kind of go
some
from
people.
there and listen to it slowly, write all the notes out, and then play it back.
That's just not fair. Some people just have all the talent. Do you know how long that took me to learn to actually be able? I'm still. There's in the grade 2 exam for a guitar. There's like you do listening exercises where you have to play back
Mm.
certain notes of the scale and you have to figure them out. Do you know how long that took me to figure out? And there's you. So I'd imagine that's the type of arseholes you were coming up against,
I mean,
and that was the attitude.
maybe. I think it was mostly because obviously, as you say, or what people expect is that you've mastered something before you start teaching.
Of course.
I never intended to teach it. I never saw myself as a teacher, never saw myself as a musician. I could just work out the notes for a tune and people wanted those notes. So that was
Yeah.
what I did.
It's as simple as that. I always do that with my students is that I have zero qualifications in music whatsoever. I am completely and
Yeah.
utterly self-taught. Everything that I've learned, all the instruments that I play. When I say I play a lot of instruments, I'm a guitar player and I can play all these other things. It's transferable skills. But like you
Yes.
say, you can play notes. People want to know how to play those notes. I am more than happy to show you how to play those notes. And it's as simple
Yeah.
as that. It is as simple as that. I hate that whole thing about this whole gatekeeping thing in the music industry that, oh, it was like, do you remember, did you watch Stranger Things?
Yeah.
And people were going bananas over the fact that this generation was getting introduced to Metallica just purely from Stranger Things. And they're like, oh, you can't fucking like Metallica because you only know Matt. It's like, fuck off. Honestly.
Yeah.
Why is the problem? It doesn't matter where your information comes from. If people start getting into Metallica because they saw on Stranger Things, if you start getting
Yeah.
into Irish music because someone on the internet asked you to figure it out and show them, do you know what I mean? Why is people's problem?
Exactly. It's happening all over again with Lord of the Rings, though. When they made the films, it was, well, you can't get into it now because you didn't read the books. Now they've made the new Rings of Power series. It's like, you can't get into it now because you've never seen the films.
Oh, yeah, sure
These
enough. I
things
never
go
thought of that.
round.
They do go around, yeah. Out of interest, what did you think about Rings of Power?
I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan, so I thought I was going to
We,
hate it, but I
yeah,
just accepted it for what it was.
yeah.
And
I think
it was just an additional Lord of the Rings input, and that was fine by me.
yeah, I think an awful lot of us just had to make do with the fact that it was just an addition. I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan as well. I
Yeah.
listen to the Lord of the Rings. I don't know if you've ever come across them, but they're like it's an audio book, but it's an old BBC radio broadcast. Have you
Yeah.
listened to it?
Yeah.
I listen to that at least once a month. I
Nice.
must have listened to it about 20 times at this stage, and there's one of The Hobbit as well, and it's amazing. And I've got the cartoon version of The Hobbit on
Love
DVD in
it.
like Spanish DVD. And one of my favorite Lord of the Rings is the cartoon one from 1978. Honest to God,
Amazing.
amazing. So yeah, I'm glad we found that thing that there is another one of me out there in the world that likes Lord of the Rings
Yes.
as much as possible. The whole message that we're sending out here, dear listeners, is fuck the gatekeepers. There's no need for them. And if you are a gatekeeper, fuck you. That's a lovely message to be sending out, isn't it? Yeah. Sorry to anyone that is a gatekeeper and now doesn't listen to me anymore. But sure, listen,
Yeah.
you've got enough problems of your own. So along with the YouTube stuff, do you gig at all, or do you have any aspirations to gig?
Um, when I first started, again, about 6 months to a year in, I played one small piece of music with our musical theatre group as part of a show. Since then, I've played twice in front of people.
That's
Well,
it.
maybe three times if you take a live video. But I played once at my grandfather's funeral, once at once on a live stream on YouTube, and I've played once in the last few months at a festival in my local area, and that is it.
And is that just because there was you have no interest in it, or there's no opportunities, or what's the crack?
Oh, there would be millions of opportunities. Honestly, I turn around so many tunes that I don't necessarily learn them well enough to play back live, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I
So
completely get you.
you know, I'm putting out 2 different tunes a week. Often I film 5 or 6 different tunes in one go. I'm working on collaborations and commissions that I've got going on with other people outside of that. I'm working on an album at the moment. So the process of obviously learning and creating the tutorial, I listen to the tune for an hour, half an hour, write out the notes, and then I sort of play it through once or twice, and then I kind of go on to record.
Yeah.
So I'm
And
looking
that's
at
it.
I'm looking at notes that I've got written down, so it doesn't sort of sink in as such. So if I was going to do playing live anywhere, I would need to work on learning a load of tunes off by heart so I could play them to an
Yeah.
audience
The
at that
return
level, you know?
the return on investment probably isn't good enough to make it worthwhile.
Yeah, I suppose as well, because I work from home, it's quite convenient for me
Mm-hmm.
with my husband. You know, we work during the day because he works from home as well. And then gigs and things tend to be in the evening and they tend to be further away. They involve traveling. So I don't really need that
Yeah,
alongside it, to be honest.
I couldn't agree with you more. I used to gig it. I live in Aberdeen, and I used to gig 5-6 times a weekend over a Friday and a Saturday after
Yeah.
teaching 40 students every week.
Wow.
And I used to go out and about to the students, and then I used to have to go out and about. So the only day of the week I was actually home was a Sunday, and I was either knackered or dying of a hangover. So basically, I was like 7 days a week, no one saw me, unless you actively went out of your way to go and see me. But now, as you say, I work from home. This is a fancy little studio shed in my garden. It's great. I teach from here. And then I just do gigs at most twice a week, mostly just once a week. And it's great. And the reason I ask about gigging is because I very, very seldom have seen tin whistle players, Irish flute players out and about actually gigging. And I think it's amazing. I done some gigs in America with an Irish guy called Dan O'Sullivan. How are you, Dan, if you're listening?
Mhm.
He plays tin whistle. His main instrument is uilleann pipes. Ever come across uilleann pipes?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So he plays uilleann pipes, but he also plays tin whistle. And to this day, probably the best musician I've ever played with, and the most fun I've ever had playing with someone that I didn't know. I didn't know him. But the whistle, it's just, it's amazing. It's absolutely fantastic. And I don't think it's used enough, because it is this thing that you've got people like yourself that will get into it because it's relatively easy. And you've also
Yeah.
got people that have always played it because they were made play it, and you don't actually kind of think of it as a genuine instrument that can hold its own. So
Yeah.
it is. For me anyway. In my opinion, there's a massive gap for some rock star tin whistle players. So yeah, you should look into that, and the gigging side of things. You could get to America and play in America.
Yeah. I'll be honest, the more you look into it, the more you find.
Mm-hmm. There was
Especially if
one.
there are so many, like, there's a lot of German bands that use it. There's so many bands
Mhm.
that sort of slide low whistle usually into their music, and
Yeah.
it really makes a difference to the dynamics of what they're playing. But
Cool. I may look out for these because I've never come across them. Maybe I'm just not looking in the right places, to be fair. But sure, look. So let's get into the YouTube. So you've got a huge following on YouTube. You've got what, 82,500, 83,000 people
yeah.
following you? That's absolutely phenomenal. Was that by design, or was it like your? This sounds terrible. Was it like your music career and an accident? That is not meant in the way that it sounds like. Oh, you just happened across a music career. Good for you. Do you know what I mean? But did you intentionally set out? Once you got a bit of traction on YouTube, did you intentionally set out to grow it, or was it organic, or what did you do?
I've never advertised. I've never paid for any ads. I've never done anything in that way. As I said, I didn't intend to have music as my career. I was completely happy doing little commercial videos and product
Yeah.
demonstrations, that sort of thing. I think as it grew, it sort of took over more of my time alongside my other job. So I kind of needed to decide, was I going to pursue that, or was I going to stick with my job? Because doing the two together just wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
So yeah, it got to a certain stage, I suppose. maybe around the like 20,000 subscribers mark, where I thought, well, it might be worth having a go of,
Yeah.
seeing if I can, actually make something of it. So yeah, I think when it got to that stage, I probably started putting more effort in. Obviously, getting things like a Patreon or a coffee, if you get supporters
Mm.
to monetarily support you from another source, then you know that there's something in it, I think.
Yeah. That's yeah, and there's a lot to be said for that. So did you just pack in the other job? Well, I suppose it's kind of were you actually employed, or was this like
No.
it was still a freelance thing, so you didn't really
Yeah,
need to.
everything was freelance. So I've been working from home since I quit retail, which was, oh, I don't know, maybe like 2014. So I've been working from home for about 3 years anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was easy enough to do something alongside my current job. So I've just sort of slowly phased it out. So I stopped doing the product demonstration videos and I kept doing the sort of white background talking head videos.
Yeah.
And then I phased those out and just stuck with the voiceover. As I said, I still do a bit of voiceover now anyway. So it's just a
So
slow phasing out process.
very good. And have you voiced over or demonstrated any products that people might know you from?
Probably not.
Well,
Well,
again,
it's mostly
that's
for small businesses and people online,
oh wow.
not necessarily sort of big brands or anything. It's yeah.
Again, that's really good to know that something like that exists. 10 years ago, that didn't exist. That wasn't well, maybe 20 years ago, that wasn't a thing. That really
No.
wasn't a thing. Imagine, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, I want to sit at home and I want people to find me and ask me to talk about their thing that they're going to sell. All right, grand job. Yeah, fair play. Do you know what I mean? It's mad. And that's what I love about doing this podcast. 20 years ago, there was no podcast. There was no
Yeah.
such thing as a podcast. You know what I mean? And nowadays, there's all these different opportunities. That's so wild. I always tell the story of there recently. I was speaking to someone through hopping and trotting. I was speaking to her and I says, "What is it that you do?" And she lived in Georgia in the States, in Atlanta, I think she said. Oh no, maybe it wasn't. Anyway, she was in Georgia and in the States, and she says, "My job is that I help doctors buy luxury real estate with the aim of turning them into Airbnb part-time businesses." And I was like,
Wow.
"What? That's how, in the name of Jesus, is that a thing? You don't go down to the job center and say, 'Hello there, one of those, please.'" It just doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen. But nowadays, it can happen. It's amazing. I love
Yeah.
it so much. I love it
It's
so much.
definitely one of those things that my family don't quite understand.
Yeah, because I would
I
imagine
think
that
my
you're.
parents, my
Sorry,
mum and
carry on.
dad are like in their 60s and they're fine with it. They watch the YouTube videos, they really enjoy it. My dad's always been musical anyway, and obviously as we've done a lot of theater. So if I'm dressed as an elf or if I'm dressed as a clown for a video, they completely understand that's part of who I am,
Yeah.
what I do. But yeah, people regularly come to the house when I'm in the middle of filming and then I answer the door dressed as a clown or an elf. And that is harder to explain to the postman or to the 80 something father-in-law or
I know what you mean.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd imagine that an awful lot of these people that you'd speak to, they'd be like, "Oh, that's nice. Oh, but what if it doesn't work out?" Do you know what I mean? What are you going to fall back on? And it's that whole
Yes.
thing of it's people that are, and this is not a slight in any way, shape, or form. This is not a put down. It's just an observation. But that people that work for a living, not that we don't work for a living, but uh, work in a job, work in a bank, or work as a like my dad's a mechanic. Do you know what I mean? And trying to explain this
Yeah.
to my dad, that my dad gets paid at the end of the week. He does his job. He comes home and he does his own thing. Do you know what I mean? Us creative people and us people that are self-employed and freelancers, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work at all. We have
No.
to find the people that want to pay for our services, and someone out there will want, some doctor out there in the world does want to have some luxury real estate to start his part-time Airbnb service. And you can guarantee that he is going to find your one that I was on the phone to, because she's the only one in the world that does it. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's and trying to explain that to someone is very, very funny. But yeah, it's mad that everyone thinks we're just getting away with this. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's funny. It's funny trying to tell yourself that you're not just getting away with it. That this actually is a genuine thing. And it's like you were saying, when you see that there are people actually supporting you on your Patreon. So it's
Yeah.
not just people subscribing to YouTube. It's people that are actually essentially pledging money every month. to keep
Yeah.
to keep you going, and that's what pays your wages, and people are getting the value out of however much they're putting towards it. It's an amazing thing.
I never understand that. I can never get over the fact that somebody just wants to fund what you're doing, which is silly because, I do the same thing myself. Like you go onto Domestika or whatever and you buy an art course or something to follow, people do it. But
Yeah,
it is just strange to think that people would do it for you.
yeah, I know. It is weird, but it goes back to something I was speaking to someone about earlier on. It's all about making like a human connection with someone.
Yeah.
When like I sent you a text and I says, "Would you like to come on my podcast?" I says, "I love what you do," and whatever else. And I obviously saw something in you that I thought I would love to speak to you about what it is you're doing, and hopefully you saw something in me that you were saying I'd love to have a chat with that person and tell them about what it is. And it all goes back, and in a way we're supporting each other. That's getting all kind of, I don't know, highfalutin and completely utterly off track. But hey ho, there, I've said it now. It's out there, and it's out there in the world now. So there it is. Remember when I said at the start that I'll often just waffle on and talk shit, and I'll have to do 99% of my edit is me just telling myself to shut up. But anyway, let's get back on track. So going back to YouTube, if there is a Stephanie out there in the world wanting to know how Stephanie Burton has made her Cutie Pie YouTube channel so successful, if you had to reverse engineer what you did and give someone actual genuine advice and like kind of steps, what would they be?
Find something you're passionate about, but not the best at.
Okay.
Because I think having to constantly challenge yourself when you're creating the content is something really good because you keep pushing yourself to get better. I think that is one of the most important things, is that you don't burn out and you don't lose the spark, I guess, if you're keeping your sights aimed higher, because you need to improve what you're doing. I think that's always one good thing. But starting out on YouTube is really easy. All you need to do is have the discipline, I suppose, to create content on a regular basis. Once you've got that, as long as you're putting something out there that you think will be useful or you think will be entertaining, people technically should come and watch it.
Very good. That's one thing that I have struggled with myself, is the accountability to yourself and keeping yourself accountable. So like, for example, my podcast goes out every Friday. I have to have
Yeah.
an interview done, or I have to have something, and that's what keeps me accountable. What keeps you accountable to your YouTube channel?
I think I like it for a start, which is good.
That helps. Yeah.
Obviously, I started off playing tin whistle because I wanted to learn to play an instrument myself. So obviously, learning regular different tunes is like a self improvement experience, I suppose. In general, people pay for commissions, so they commission a tune where they pay me to create a tutorial for a specific song, and then I say, well, once you've paid whatever the amount is, I'll do it within 4 weeks. So sometimes I've got deadlines like that I need to work to anyway.
Okay.
I guess the experience of obviously making money by working for clients myself as a freelancer with everything kind of set me on the right path to, be able to have the discipline, I suppose, to make videos on a regular basis. But essentially, if I don't make videos, I don't get paid.
Yeah.
If the content isn't there, you're not going to be able to engage the audience that are already supporting you anyway.
Yeah.
So
So there's
it's a bit of give and take. Everybody needs to eat.
Yeah.
Everybody has got bills to pay. If whatever you're doing is working towards paying those bills, then you've got to do it anyway.
Yeah. I suppose that's a really good way of looking at it. And then how would someone get started? Say someone really likes playing tin whistle, or they really like playing flute, or they really like playing recorder. How do they get into YouTube? And by that I mean, what do they need to start?
To start their own channel or to start learning to play?
So the idea of this podcast is to speak to people who have made a career out of music in one way or another, like I would have said to you when we first connected, in the hopes of giving others out there that are listening the inspiration to do it, but also the kind of the practical, do this, do that, apply this to your situation as much as possible. So that's what I'm asking. So if I was playing flute and I was concerned that the audio on my phone isn't going to be enough, it's not going to be great, how do I get over that? Or what do I do? Do you know what I mean? So how do I actually start? I don't know if that's two separate questions, is it? But do you know what I mean?
Well, Um, it it is very different. There are very different ways you can start now to when I actually started. I still do things in quite an old-fashioned way. Like I've got the microphone and the audio interface. I've got quite vintage laptop and editing software. So I it's quite a slow process. I even use a video camera. So all those things that I go through that I need to do that, you can actually do on your phone these days anyway. So even if you're just starting out, you don't technically need all that other stuff. You can get things that make your recordings have like reverb and things on your phone anyway. So you don't really need the snazzy editing software, to be honest. Um, but I think as long as you've got something that you can record yourself with, as long as you've got the best equipment that you can afford, I suppose, when you're starting out, and then you're
Fine.
consistent with what you produce, then you should be in the best place to start.
Do you think what's more important, consistency or equipment?
I think the general quality of the content, the better the quality of the content, the better it'll be received. So if you were putting out audio that people couldn't really hear and you were putting out video that people couldn't really see, then you're not going to get as far as if you've got something that looks more polished and finished.
So do
But
you
I
think
mean,
it's
you'd be better off working harder for like a fortnight on something and putting out a better video than you would putting out like 2 or 3 videos a week if there was a decrease in the quality of those videos.
Grant? That's where I was going with that one. So
Yeah.
you reckon quality over quantity?
Yeah. I think
Okay.
there's a balance with anything. I mean, I've asked my followers this time and time again, and they've agreed that the sort of 2 videos a week kind of really works for them. 3 videos would kind of be like overkill. You've got too much content
Yeah.
coming at you because nobody can learn that many tunes alongside their job and things
Of
anyway.
course. Yeah.
But I mean, the once a week or the once a fortnight, even though it would be a better video, it might be like I'd go out and I'd film a big fancy cover or something. I mean, people come to me for tin whistle lessons, so they don't need the fancy elements. They just need to be able to clearly see and hear what I'm doing. So I think it depends on whether you wanted to teach or whether you wanted to just sort of play. If you were going from a performance point of view, you could take longer in between each video, but make it better.
Okay. Very good. I think that's really, really good practical advice. Too many of these YouTube videos are just like it's not tailored to, and of course it can't be tailored to everybody, but it's very
Oh
hard to.
no.
I've found anyway to get actual tailored, proper real life advice on people that are wanting to start YouTube channels and people that I was on a call just before we started recording here with a guy that was like, I want to put my album out, but I don't know any good engineers or producers, and I need someone to record it. And I was just kind of like, not necessarily. You don't really. A really good way of doing it is just do like what you're saying. Obviously, there has to be a balance. There has to be a balance. But it doesn't necessarily need to be. It doesn't have to. I'm getting off track. I'm going to edit half of that out.
No, keep going. I think it's good.
It doesn't necessarily have to be absolutely. It's not going to change the world as long as it's consistent quality and you're consistent with it. That seems to be the way to go. I'm still trying to grow my own YouTube channel. I've only got like 50 odd subscribers, but that's okay. Rome wasn't built in a day. I'm okay with that. And if
Do
I
you know,
if I
it's
if I help even one of those 55 people to get to the next step, then that's my job done.
yeah.
I'm happy.
Sometimes I think people think too much about it. Like I've
Hmm.
been trying to help a couple of other musicians that I know sort of build their Instagram and build their YouTube anyway. And the problem I think that they have is that they think about it too much or they worry too much about what the content they're putting out is how it's gonna be received. But you need to put content out. So you kind of just need to stop thinking about it sometimes and just do it because
Just do it.
you can get sort of overwhelmed with all the thoughts and all the details about it, and then you don't do it. And if you don't
Yeah.
put stuff out there, nobody's ever going to see it.
Yes. Brilliant. Yep. I love it. And I often have to take that advice myself. I often have to just have a word with myself and just like, no, just stop overthinking it. I'm a great lad for thinking of solutions to problems that will never, ever, ever, never. And I'll be like, well, if this happens, I know what to do. But then, you know what I mean? But then I'm 4 hours later and no further on. I'm in a worse position because I'm now thinking that a fucking hurricane's going to hit the place. And sure, look at anyway. So when I was doing all my research into Tin Whistle, and I originally came across your channel a few years ago, I noticed that there is such thing as a tunable tin whistle, which
Yeah.
blew my mind, completely and utterly blew my mind. How the hell does that work?
It depends how tunable you think it is.
Okay.
A tunable tin whistle, well, let's start with a non-tunable tin whistle, is a one-piece whistle. So as an example, it's one tube and the mouthpiece is all molded as part of that one tube. Nothing comes
Hmm.
apart, nothing moves, it is a solid piece. And all that means is that when you blow through it, for example, and it's a key of D whistle, you'll be able to play a diatonic scale in the key of D.
Hmm.
Doesn't matter if nobody knows what that means, but it means that if you play D, it will come out as it sounds. A
Okay.
tunable whistle is slightly different in so much as that the mouthpiece just moves a little bit. So the mouthpiece is made as a separate top that goes onto the whistle. So you can take it off completely and you can have a two-piece. So you've got mouthpiece in one hand and the whistle body in the other. And all it does is it moves up and down a little bit. So if you lengthen the whistle by moving the mouthpiece sort of further off, it
Uh-huh.
flattens the notes a little bit.
Uh-huh.
And if you push it down as far as it'll go, it sharpens the notes a little bit. So on some whistles, if you extend them fully, you can get you can go from a D to a D flat.
Okay.
But it's more so fine tuning to go with other instruments.
Okay. So it's not like you can uh,
It's not like a
just
guitar, for example. You could sort of
tune it
there's
down.
not as there's not as much flexibility.
Okay, so it's more like kind of if you were gigging somewhere that was like really, really hot and humid, for example.
Yes.
Okay, that's really
Yeah,
interesting to know.
because
But
obviously tin whistles are often metal and they kind of
Mhm,
need warming up so that they play in tune. They can
mhm.
be affected by the weather. They can be affected by, all sorts of things really. So yeah. And also some instruments are tuned to 440 and some are tuned to 432. So you
Yeah,
can just,
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's yeah. I can't remember what 4 3 3 2 is. It's like kind of like halfway between the flat key and the whole key.
yeah.
It's
So it's
it's
just
weird.
if you're playing with other instruments, you've got the option to just tweak the pitch a little bit, flatten or sharpen it.
And could you, for example, is it feasible if you had a tunable whistle in D, but the lads were playing in D flat? Could you tune it to D flat and get away with it, or is that not the intended purpose?
It's not really the intended purpose, but you can do it on some whistles.
Okay.
What tends to happen is obviously because the holes are positioned in certain places on the body of the whistle.
Uh-huh.
Um, that's to hit that particular note. It's
Yeah.
designed to be that size, that shape, and that location to hit that note as
Yeah.
on pitch as possible. So obviously, extending the whistle to its full length to get
Yeah.
the D flat just kind of puts those notes, the rest of the notes in the scale, slightly off. So you could technically do it, but you might be playing some notes that sound a little bit off.
Intonation. The intonation would
Yes.
be all off. I love it. And this is one that's just occurred to me. I don't know why. I think I know the answer to this, and I think it's going to be a really, really stupid question, but I'm going to ask it anyway because I'm curious. Could you could you potentially use a tunable whistle in the same way that a guitar player would use a whammy bar? Do you know what a whammy bar is on a guitar?
Um, I
Like it
think I do. Yeah, on an electric guitar,
on an electric guitar. Let me see
and
if
you
I can
wobble it,
just.
and you wobble it, and it wiggles your
So if
sound.
I get a guitar, it's this, and it goes
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, which
You
kind
can
of
do
like
loads.
wavers your sound a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, so this for example would, and it like just takes all the slack off the strings. You can do like mental kind of effects and stuff, like sounds and all that. Can that be done with? Could that be done with a tunable whistle?
Not really.
Okay,
Part of the problem is that obviously the mouthpiece is on quite tight so that it doesn't fly off.
fair enough. I thought it was a bit of a stupid question.
So,
All right.
I mean, if you greased the whistle or you had a loose fitting mouthpiece, then yeah, potentially.
Cool. That's now my new mission in life. I want it because I'm a huge Van Halen fan, and Eddie Van Halen was known for like doing loads of whammy bar stuff. So that's my new mission in life is to learn how to play some Van Halen on the tin whistle and get a
You
tunable
can
one.
actually do that with finger techniques, though. So
Can you?
it is doable.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, you can do well in a way.
Okay.
You can do something. You can do something called a slide, which is obviously I don't know why I'm showing you because this is a podcast, but where you slide your finger from one hole onto the whistle and sort of open it slowly, so it kind of bends the note a little bit.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Go on. That's what I want.
And then you can do all sorts of weird things. And also if you play the note and then you lessen the breath that you put in, it sort of drifts off a little bit. See if I can do this.
That's
It
class.
works.
I love it.
It works a little bit better on Native American flute.
Yeah. Still though. Okay. Fair enough. I now don't need to go and learn how to play a tin whistle and play Van Halen on it. I'm just going to commission you to do some Van Halen on the tin whistle. You've already got it figured out. I can't believe that question has led to me getting a tin whistle lesson. I love it. Amazing. Cool. So I know that you kind of reading music was always a bit of a struggle for you.
Yes.
And I know that reading music and understanding music theory and notation is a struggle for an awful lot of musicians, me included. It's only in the past couple of years that I actually understood what a scale was for, believe it or not. I didn't understand the point. Like, what? I was like, I'll just do this. And like, what the fuck do I need a scale for? But like, it's only since I started teaching guitar and like realizing this that it actually made sense to me. How do you get past not being able to, not being able, but not understanding music theory and notation and stuff?
Notation doesn't seem to be much of a problem because I play by ear, and a lot of people who play tin whistle play by ear anyway. So if you're playing sort of Irish trad music, there's a lot that you can pick up from listening, and you don't necessarily need the notation for that. Music theory, on the other hand, is difficult. It depends what you want to do. Obviously, for example, a lot of people can't work out which key of whistle they should be using when they're trying to work out how to play a tune. Well, I don't know the sort of technical ways to do that, so I also do that by ear. So when I first started, I did everything just by listening, and then I'd swap a whistle key tail, and that's not quite working. I'm doing too many half holes, trying to find different notes that aren't in that key. So I'll swap to a different one. So I kind of did it by trial and error.
Okay.
But I am learning that sort of thing. So I've learnt about the different scales, about the different keys, about the different names and bits of music theory that go towards creating music. I think, especially if you're making your own music, you need a lot more of that than if you're just playing back somebody else's.
Yeah, I've found that as well in the past few years, that it's having that universal language to actually be able to properly articulate what you're trying to get. Instead of like you're speaking about tin whistle tabs. In guitar, we have tabs as well.
Yeah.
And instead of calling a chord a 4 on the A, do you know what I mean? That makes no sense at all. In fact, a 4 on the A would be a D, an E chord. It's the fourth chord in the A or whatever it is. There we go. If I've gotten that wrong, please believe me that I know what I'm on about with music. But yeah, it's totally different. So that's what I was just curious about. But I suppose that would only really come into effect if you are, or only really be an issue if you are performing with other musicians, or if you were really trying to put across an idea in a theoretical way. So I suppose that kind of answers the question, that you don't really necessarily need it. It's not really overly.
It depends. As I said, it depends what I'm doing. I don't play with other musicians in sort of live settings or in a band or anything, so I've not really come across that. But because tin whistles come in a range of keys, you would take whistles in every key, so you'd still be able to play along with every song anyway.
Exactly.
It doesn't really. So you still don't really need it for that. But I think, I was trying to work on my own music this year and trying to make an album. So obviously you need to know a bit of music theory to know that certain scales are better used in Celtic music or Irish music. Certain sort of chords go with certain notes for a particular reason. So yeah.
Of course. Yeah. One thing that's after getting me thinking, and this is, again, it's a little bit off script, was that in harmonica, you can play what's called cross harp. So in the key of, in the key of E, right? And if you have a harmonica that's in the key of E, and if you play the major scale, it's an E major scale. But if you play in what's called second position, I think it's second position, you can play bluesy in the key of A.
Oh, nice.
Is there something like that in just when you're talking about using the different notes of scale and playing half notes and stuff? Could you use a D tin whistle, say, to play in a different key? But like, do you know what I mean?
Yes. You can play in the key of D, you can play in the key of G, I think it is as well. There's always a first and a second scale. And then there's kind of like a minor scale.
Yeah.
So you can play a few different scales on a D whistle.
Yeah. And is that the relative minor?
See, that's where you lose me. I don't
Okay.
know.
Okay, apologies for that. So the
No,
relative
hang
minor
on.
of the relative minor of D is B minor.
I can find out. I have this information. Can I find out? Yes. Okay. So a D whistle would play in obviously the key of D. Secondary key that the tin whistle will play in easily is a G. And yeah, I don't know. It just says minor key.
Minor
So it
key.
plays in the minor key would be the key of E for a D whistle.
E minor.
Apparently.
Wow, that's weird. That is usually you could play in like sort of, maybe it's not weird. Maybe it's not weird at all. I'm just thinking of it from a music theory standing, in that the relative minor of D is B. The easy way of finding the relative minor is finding out what the sixth note in the scale is. That's always your relative minor. So there you go. I didn't know that you could play different scales. That never occurred to me. I just got thinking. I'm glad we've worked something out. So there you go. But myself and Steph are professional musicians, and we had to use Google. So if we can do it, anyone can do it. There you go.
Exactly.
Cool.
Do you see? I don't consider myself a professional musician.
Well, here's the thing. What is your job title?
I don't know.
If I said I'm going to give you £1 million right now, but you have to tell me what it is that you do for work in 3 words or less, what is it?
Tin whistle tutorials.
Tin whistle tutorials. And what is a tin whistle?
It's a musical instrument.
And do you do that full? Is that your full-time profession?
Yeah.
I would certainly say you're a professional musician, because I don't know what else you would call it. It is again. It's probably going back to this like gatekeepery thing where people are like, oh, you play tin whistle. Fucking, do you know what I mean?
If you're going to say you're a professional musician, that you should have some level of proficiency in what you do. And I don't focus on sort of playing at a professional level, if you know what I mean. That's not necessarily my focus. So yeah. I never considered myself really as a professional musician. I've only recently started considering myself as a musician at all.
Well, for what it's worth, I would certainly consider you a professional musician. My bandmate gets some slagging on this podcast, and he'd be the type that he didn't even know there was a D minor until about a year ago. And me and him have been playing for years, and he gets some slagging. I always give him a slag, and I love him dearly. Callum, I love you, lad. I do. He's probably the best bandmate I've ever had. Sorry to all the other bandmates. Myself and Callum are like that, but he would consider himself a professional musician. Even though he has a day job, he would consider himself a professional musician. So the long and short of it is, if that little whore considers himself a professional musician, you're definitely a professional musician. And he gets away with calling himself a professional musician. You and I are definitely, you especially, are definitely a professional musician. People pay you to do music. That's the definition of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I suppose.
Don't ever think that you're not worth what you are. You 100% are. Us musicians and people that are making it a career are like the 1% of the 1%. And there are millions of people around the world who would absolutely give anything to be in your position.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's millions of people around the world that would do anything to be in my position, and I would do anything to be in your position. Do you know what I mean? It's one of those things. Don't ever think that you're not worth what you actually are. That goes for anybody out there listening. I'm sending the love. This has turned into a very, very weird conversation. Right. Okay, so let's bring it back. So, out of the 50 or so tin whistles that you have, which one is your favorite, or do you have a favorite?
Yeah. Well, not necessarily one, but I favor 2 brands in particular, maybe 3. The Lear whistles, which I like the high whistles from. They do a great whistle set as well, which is it comes in its own little sort of, what's the word? Suitcase? Little briefcase of whistles, which is really nice. And Carbony, and they're a really, really expensive whistle brand. I much prefer their low whistles to any other whistles, and that is because they have this really cool feature called a chimney extender, which means they put little tubes on the inside of the whistle, which makes the finger holes closer together on the outside, which makes low whistles like 10 times easier to play, which is
Oh, wow.
really, really amazing. Yeah.
That
So
sounds genius.
yeah, but they're definitely obviously my preferred low whistles because the bigger the whistle gets, the harder it is to play. So if there's a way of making those finger holes closer together, you can just do so much more with it.
Oh, cool. I love all
And
that.
Lear are amazing. They're currently doing silver plated whistles, but the sound from them is just really pure and clear. You sort of know what you're getting with them. They're really reliable. So
Very good. Is that Lear
definitely.
spelled L-I-F-A-D-R?
Yes,
Are they Irish?
they are.
I think there's a legend of the children of Lear. Is that anything to do with them at all?
Um, I don't think so, but they may have been inspired by
Yeah.
it.
Oh, no, not that they would have had anything to do with the legend. The legend is all about the children of this fella called Lear, and they all get turned into swans, and they live for like 900 years or something
Yeah,
like
well,
that.
their logo is a swan.
Right, there
Two
you
swans.
go. Right. Lovely. So it must have, oh, I love that. I'm going to check them out. I'm going to get one of those whistles. I'm going to learn how to play a tin whistle on a Lear whistle. Are they expensive? A little. All right. Well, maybe
Yeah,
Lear might sponsor this episode of the podcast
yeah.
or something and send us a whistle.
I can send you one. I've got a few.
Right, here we go. Grand job. Lovely. Cool about it. Right. So I love that. I've absolutely loved this conversation. Before we finish up and head into quick fire round, tell us about these competitions that you're running. What's the crack?
Oh, yes. So I've teamed up with a company called James Dominic Music Whistles, and they create really affordable sort of polymer low whistles.
Okay.
So every month throughout the whole year, I'm doing a competition where you can win a low G whistle, a low G James Dominic Music Whistle every single month. So yeah, March's competition is going to be on YouTube, and it's just a case of you obviously find the YouTube video, you subscribe, you like the video, and maybe sort of share the video, and then you get entered into the competition. And at the end of the month, somebody gets to take home a low G whistle.
Amazing. I'm going to enter that. I'm going to enter it every month for the rest of the year
But
now.
yeah, it's on a different platform every month. So you can enter, like, if you don't win the first one, you can enter the next month on a different platform. And yeah, 12
Well done.
chances to win.
That's brilliant. That's that's you thought that one through. Well done. I like that. That's that one marketing ahead on me. I've been at like all these sort of
Yeah,
like
maybe.
market. I've been at all these
Well,
like
I've got so
marketing like
many
math
different,
classes.
I've got so many different followers on so many different platforms. I just kind of wanted to give everybody the opportunity as well. Because, some people, not everybody's on TikTok. So
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. I think I said it before that TikTok is equally the best and worst thing that's ever happened to me. Like I love TikTok so much, but my Jesus, I lose hours of me life every day to it.
yeah.
And it's all it is like food, Legend of Zelda,
Yes.
the odd Lord of the Rings thing, and very, very little music, to be perfectly honest. There's very little music on it. It tells me more about myself than I actually know myself, because it
Yeah.
knows me better than I do. But anyway, cool. All right. Let's head into a quick fire round before we finish up. And these are just random questions, just purely for the crack. Anyone that's been listening for a while now knows the situation at this stage. So, Steph, first question. What is the most adventurous thing you've ever done?
How do I do that quick fire?
I don't know. To be fair, these are less quick fire. I used, have you ever come across ChatGPT?
No.
Oh, ChatGPT will change your life. ChatGPT is like, there was a fella passed his university degree using an exam or an essay that ChatGPT wrote for him, and it took ChatGPT 20 minutes to do it. So yeah, it's basically artificial intelligence that you say, like for this, for example, I says, give me 10 quick fire round or give me 10 icebreaker questions to ask on my music related podcast. And it gave me 10 of them. And then it says, please generate 10 more. And it'll remember the ones that it's already done. It's madness. It's basically meaning that we're living in the future and we're like one step away from Terminator.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a little bit terrifying, but it's amazing. Look up Chat GPT. It's like taking over the world.
I will.
Yeah. Anywho, in saying that, what's the most adventurous thing you've ever done?
Oh honestly don't know. Why do I not know? I genuinely have no idea. I
Okay.
travel a lot.
Okay.
It's not
That's
that adventurous, really.
that's quite adventurous. Where's the most mental place you've been to? The most random?
Nowhere. We go to normal places. I've been to Japan, I've been to Iceland, I've been to Morocco. They were probably the three strangest places I've been to. Just
Okay.
because of the sort of culture difference, I suppose, from home.
Yeah.
None
I've
of
heard
those
that.
are
Well,
very
Japan.
adventurous.
I've heard that Japan is number one. There's a huge community of Irish music in Japan from
Yeah.
Japanese people, not from Irish people. It's mental. What was Japan like?
Beautiful. Everything about it is incredible. The trains go twice as fast as they do everywhere else. People bow as they come in and out of each train carriage. And then at the end of the journey, the seats lift up and turn around so everybody's facing forwards for the journey back.
Oh wow,
That is
that's
insane. You can
amazing.
get coffee from vending machines in the middle of nowhere that's in a bottle, but it's still hot.
Wow.
It's the best place ever.
Yeah, I've spoken to so many people on this podcast, and they've said that have been to Japan and played in Japan, and it's like number one on my list of places to go in the world. Like I said, I love like Zelda and like Pokemon and stuff. I'm literally just shaped like a 30-year-old man. I am really really not. On the inside, I'm operating at a level of about 7 to 10 years old at any given time. So yeah, I'd love to go to Japan. That's quite adventurous. Getting coffee out of a bottle on a magic train. That's as adventurous as you get.
Well, I've
Fair enough.
milked a cow, if that helps, but
You
not in
okay?
Japan.
Japanese cow. Wow. What are they like?
A cow?
Oh, you just said it in such a way as like, oh, it was wild. It was like this Japanese cow that was like, it was all speaking Japanese to me and had a mental accent and stuff.
No, but one thing I will tell you about cows is that if you play tin whistle to them, the entire herd comes running across the field to be your audience.
Is that right?
Genuinely. It's
Wow.
quite cool.
Do you know what? That's where the collective word for cattle comes from, as in like a herd, because someone started playing music and the cows all came over to them because they heard what was happening.
Yeah, I like it.
That's not true in any way, shape, or form. But if anyone out there, if anyone listening and actually believed me and thought I was like proper like wise beyond my years, now you know I'm not. I'm just a bullshitter. Okay. What is your? Where am I going? Where am I going? Where am I going? Where am I going? Oh, geez, these are very deep questions. I didn't really look at properly into these. Oh, here we go. What's your favorite memory from childhood?
I went on holiday with a friend, and we played a game the entire holiday where we were two men who were
Okay.
drug dealers who were doing all these crazy background crimes. And we
And
played
you,
it like non-stop throughout the entire holiday as these two drug dealers.
okay. Where was it that you went to?
Somewhere like Cornwall. It's just a little family holiday. It was the first time like my friend had come with me, and yeah, we just spent the whole week sort of following this alternative narrative in our own heads in a completely different universe to Cornwall.
Right, and you say
It
you're
was
not that
great fun.
adventurous. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair enough. Right. If here's another one for you now. If you could learn any skill, what would it be?
Oh, play the violin.
Yeah, big
I
style.
would love to play the fiddle, violin, however you'd like to call it. It is the most amazing sounding instrument, and I tried and I sounded like every child sounds when they play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And I
Yeah.
decided that I wouldn't put my husband through that and I'd stick to tin whistle.
Oh, bless. I can do the left hand for violin with relative
Nice.
not relative ease, but it's not too bad. The right hand, the bowing. Oh,
Yeah.
can't. Yeah, baffles me. Absolutely baffles me. We'll do two more here now. What is the funniest joke that you know?
Oh no, it's a visual one.
It doesn't matter. Like people can use their mind's eye on the podcast, and they can actually come to YouTube to see it. Then, and I might make this into a TikTok.
Oh, it's one that my friend does, and he does it a lot better than me.
Go on, you
Hang
can do
on.
it.
It's the stupidest joke in the world. There are two turtles or tortoises, it doesn't matter which one, we'll say tortoises. And the one
Uh-huh.
tortoise says to the other, when it rains, Do you find your mouth fills up with water? And the other one says, no. Does it work? Does it even work on camera? This is like my favorite joke ever.
It works. It works on camera. No.
Doesn't work on a
Oh
podcast.
God, I have to get like an audio description of that or something along those lines. Just everybody listening to the podcast, just laugh. That was funny. Take my word for it. It was. Oh Jesus Christ!
You're gonna use that joke now, aren't you?
100%. I am absolutely 100%. That's my type of humor. Is just completely stupid. I find myself hilarious because my things that I find funny are what my humor is. So whatever I say and I think it's funny, I find it hilarious. My wife goes mental because she's like, "It's not funny if you laugh at yourself." I'm like, "Of course it's fucking funny." Do you know what I mean? Just because I've said it doesn't mean it's not funny. Right, last question, and then we'll let you go. So, if you could live in any era, which one would it be? So, any time in history, when would you live?
The 1920s.
Ooh, the 20s. Why?
Yeah, the Roaring Twenties, the Charleston, the Rebel, the whole just trying to go wild with the music.
I love it.
Well, I was kind of thinking like the American 1920s, Rapper era, and the Charleston and the fun that you see on the films, the
Yes, very good.
idealistic, exciting, without care 1920s.
Who's going to win the Six Nations this year?
Not Wales.
Sorry, anyone not following Ireland kind of hammered Wales a little bit at the weekend. Just gone
a little bit.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit. To be fair, we only scored, what was it? We only scored once in the second half. Was it once or twice? We scored way more in the first half. But yeah.
Well, I think it's got to be Ireland at this stage.
Of course it is. That's the correct answer. Well done. Fair play to you. Steph, before we go, where can everybody find you if they want to seek you out on the internet and in the world?
Best thing to do is just type Cutie Pie Tin Whistle into Google and I should pop up.
Excellent stuff. Steph, thanks a million for your time today. You've been an absolute joy.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a lot of fun.